Hey everyone, it's Monday and time for another Monday Mastery live at 5. And I'm here in Ironwood, Michigan this week. And I think I'll have one more broadcast from up here, and then it'll all be from Kansas City or farther south. I hope you all had a great weekend, and hope you all enjoyed some fun times. I saw a couple of friends of mine were at the Rolling Stones concert in the St. Louis area this week or this weekend. Hey, Tricia, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. And it was a beautiful weekend up here. Uh, just the weather was gorgeous. We had Friday was a bit sketchy. We had cold and rain, and it kind of reminded me that yeah, fall is here, and just a lot of things are changing up here. The leaves are changing. The season's about ready to change. And hey, Don, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. And Saturday night, I was at an event, and I was able to, not private chat, I want to go here. And I'm going to share a picture with you that I took for those of you that may not have seen it on my Facebook page. This was the picture that, or the scene or the view that I had outside of outside of the event at the marina, our yacht club event, and it was an awesome sunset. And that's one of the things I love about fall up here is you get some really gorgeous sunrises and sunsets. So anyway, thank you all for joining in and being here. I wanted to hey Mike, thanks for being here, and Shar, hey, welcome. Yeah, I haven't seen you, or haven't had you join us in the last couple of weeks. Hope things are going well for you. So let's see. I wanted to share in the question I posted on Facebook today, and I've already received some flack over it. Is have you ever dated somebody that had a chip on their shoulder? And it's funny because I received some blowback about this because I had a couple of people assume it was them that I was talking about, and I just had to chuckle because that was the farthest thing from my mind to be talking about these two people. But anyway, over the past week or so, I've had some comments on a couple of my posts, a couple of my Facebook ads, and there are people that just have a perpetual chip on their shoulder. And one gentleman was talking about how all women are just out to take a man, or to he has to be wealthy because all they're looking for is packing their retirement or building their retirement account. And there were quite a few women that stepped up and disputed that one. And then there are folks that I've met and I've worked with over the years that complain about their exes, or their ex's attorney or ex-in-laws, and I could complain about ex-in-laws. My ex-father-in-law and I did not get along, but that was part of the package when we got married. And then there's his friends or her friends that may not like. Hey, Teresa, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. That may not like the new boyfriend or girlfriend, and it just creates problems in dating. And when you carry let me back up. The boyfriends or his friends or her friends would be people that got in the way of a decent relationship. They may not have liked one of the partners, and they created problems, or kept telling the other partner, this isn't a good guy or good woman for you. And so it's important to when we're dating, to understand where we're at mentally and emotionally, we we have to make sure that we're not carrying this chip on our shoulder and we're continually angry, because that comes across as a very negative person. And who wants to spend time with somebody like that? When, and I'm sure if everybody, if I ask the question, how many of you have been on a date like that where they have that chip on their shoulder and they complain about everything? Hey, Brenda, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. You go on that date, and it's just a huge, for lack of better terms, a negative energy just surrounding this person, and it's and it doesn't make any difference what the reason is. Maybe they had a bad day. Maybe they're fighting with their ex over money or kids, or whatever the problems might be. But it's when you carry that stuff. If and I'm Lord knows I hope you guys aren't carrying that stuff with you. I hope you've moved on from that. I was doing a television interview several years ago on a local Kansas City station, and we were talking about dating and relationships, and she made comment about a couple of her friends and how much her friends hated their exes. And I just thought to myself, and I didn't say it on air, but those friends of hers needed to really get therapy or counseling or coaching, because they're carrying that negativity into their next relationship. Hey, Cheryl, thanks for joining in. She's in Raymore, in my backyard, in my Missouri backyard. So anyway, the whole premise is that of my conversation tonight is to help you think about what you're carrying forward with you into future relationships. Have you resolved your issues with your ex? And if there are issues that are unresolvable, or they're very difficult to move or to get away from, how do you deal with that? Is it there's my exes here, or is it that's who they are, and that's the way it's going to be? We just have to we have to work through. We have to deal with what we have. A friend of mine that I just recently met, he talks on occasion about about the warden, his ex-wife, but he talks about it in a joking manner. He's not carrying it forward into his future relationships. He'll talk about it matter of factly. This is what went on. This is what we did. This is what we didn't do. This is how it came about, and this is what she's doing, and yada yada yada. And he says, that's her. I can't change her. And so the point here is that your attitude in dating, in relationships, will make a huge difference. It will be the difference between success and failure. If you continue to carry a negative attitude, or carry a chip on your shoulder about something that happened in your previous relationship, in your previous marriage, that's going to sour anything that you have going forward, because very few people really want to spend a lot of time with somebody that dwells on and continually brings up the past. There's only so much you can do about it. You can talk about it a couple of times and share about it, and then it's time to move on. It's somewhat, it's human nature to hang on to the negative part of our lives, but this is where we're becoming an adult, and maturing emotionally becomes so important, especially in our 50s and 60s and even 70s, and 80s. Because I know there's folks out there that are in their 80s and dating. We have to be emotionally mature and say, no, I can't control the past. I can't do anything about the past. I have to, this is what happened. It is what it is. If you made a mistake, fess up and say, I screwed up. And which one of us hasn't? None of us is perfect. Let me catch up on a couple of. Geneva, thanks for joining in tonight. And Geneva says, I absolutely am one of those people who have forgave my ex on every single thing. So I no longer no longer have that. I assume that's what you're meaning. When I see him, in fact, we've become close friends, and which is nice. Absolutely, that's awesome. And a lot of times you can change the nature of the past relationship to from a negative to a positive when you forgive and move forward. And hey, Nancy, thanks for joining in. Happy Monday to you too. Brenda says no one new ever wants to hear about your ex. Complainers, we're one and done. Oh, I love that. And it's okay to talk about, and I totally agree, Brenda. It's okay to say, when you're talking to somebody, when you're getting to know somebody, well, why didn't your marriage work, or what happened in your past marriage? Why have you been married 5 times? Those are good things to understand, but to continually complain, no. Hey, Sylvia, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. It's so important, and I keep harping on this because I see comments from people that there are no good men. All men are cheaters. All men want is sex. All women want is money. And when you assume global beliefs like that, you put yourself in a position of dating from weakness. The guy that I mentioned a little bit earlier that said that all women want to build their retirement account. He and I messaged back and forth a little bit, and my opinion, and I didn't pursue it to a real deep extent. But it appeared that he was dating the party girls. He was dating primarily younger women than him. And when you're dating people from a party perspective, or in a party perspective, and forgive me if any of you are partiers, I did nothing wrong there. But this guy was not necessarily a partier, from what I could tell. But he was dating in a pool of or from a pool of women that were not necessarily his type, and so consequently he's upset because he's not finding the healthy type of relationship that he's looking for. He's looking for somebody that is not necessarily focused on money, and is probably carries her own weight financially. But when you look in the wrong place, you're going to get burned. You're going to get you're going to be disappointed, and that's where emotional maturity comes into play. Hang on one second here. Sylvia says, but for the most part, men want younger, so that's what they find. There are now, Sylvia, I will agree to a certain extent. But there are a lot of great guys out there that are looking for partners or for girlfriends or boyfriends, and it goes both ways. I've met a lot of women that okay, not all of them. That's exactly right. There are a lot of great guys out there that are looking for 5 or 6 or 7 over and under, and well, Nancy says where. Nancy, and I don't know exactly where you're located, but there are a lot of great guys out there. And and here we go on the needle in a haystack. But the relationship we all should be looking for is that extraordinary relationship, that soulmate relationship. And you have to use an old cliche, you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find your prince. And the idea is that if you're searching in a for particular characteristics, what events might or what places might you look that are going to where you're going to find men that have those characteristics. And Brenda, several months ago, you mentioned you'd made comment online somewhere on one of my posts that you know there are so many great places to look. Go to the golf course on Saturday. Go to the shooting range. There's plenty of guys there. And I'll get to your comment here in a minute. Hey Deb, thanks for joining in. I think it depends on the guy's age. If it's middle-age crisis guy, he wants younger, pretty much. There can be a lot of that. I understand. And if that's the guy that you're coming across, I pity him because that's not a long-term relationship. Brenda says, I don't really agree. I often dated men younger than I am. I believe men look for energy and active life-loving women. When we're good with ourselves, and happy, it attracts. And Brenda, that's absolutely correct. I totally agree with that. So a lot of it, that's I've got so many ways that I can go with that, Brenda. But that's an awesome statement that I totally agree. And what happens, and I find sometimes that I'm not as energetic as I'd like to be. It happens, but we have to portray an energy, and if you want a guy that's laid back, then I'm scanning too many comments here. Sylvia, look, I'll tell you a quick story. I was washing my car with my 28-year-old daughter. A man about my age was walking in the opposite direction, and oh my God, he stared at my daughter and even turned around to see her more. I was looking at him, and I wouldn't look at him. Let's see. I was looking at him, and I wouldn't look at him either. But but it was just weird. My daughter and I started laughing. Yeah, you're gonna get creepers like that. On the one hand, it's a compliment that you have an attractive that you and your daughter are attractive, so you're gonna get lookers. But that can be really creepy. Brenda says, tell them I'm too old. Well, that's exactly right. and see, that's an interesting thing, because I have a lot of women tell me that when they're online dating, they'll have 20 and 30 somethings reaching out to them and wanting to date and have a good time, and it's, and I don't know, and everybody has their own preference. But for me, and you each have to find your own path, and I guess, as Brenda says, you have to find your own level of energy. But if the age gets to be too extreme, there's going to come a point in time where it's all fun and games right now. And we had this conversation with, I forget his name, last week. But it's all fun and games in the beginning, but in 20 years, is it going to be the same fun and games? He was talking about dating somebody his daughter's age, and he said, he asked if it was appropriate he was in his, I think he said he was in his 60s, and he asked if it was appropriate to date somebody in his daughter's age. Well, it's all fun and games now, but when he's 80, she may be 50. And there's going to be a huge energy difference there. So that's something that you all have to be aware of. That as we age, our energy level drops, at least to some extent. And I've talked to a number of people that have that are in those what do they call them, May, November, or May, October relationships. And the younger spouse or the younger partner is generally dissatisfied because their partner, their spouse, just doesn't have the energy, just doesn't want to do the things that they want to do. They don't want to get out and dance. They don't want to get out and do some of the same activities that they did years ago. And Deb says, I don't want to raise my boyfriend. I like that one. There's so much truth to that. But it's your own. You have to choose what's most appropriate for you and what you're most comfortable with. You just have to, when you make those choices of a significant age difference, and I'm talking 15, 20, 25, 30-year age difference, that becomes, again, it's all fun and games now, but it's going to become an issue somewhere down the road, because you're not going to have common history. And when I say common history, you're not going to have grown up through the same era. You're going to have grown up in different eras, different music, different, your friends may not be compatible. The younger partner is going to have to seriously consider if they want to be a caregiver. I know my dad and his wife, there was a 15-year age difference, and when she walked into the attorney when they were working on their estate, she said, I don't want to take care of him. So you have to recognize that that's going to be a possibility, that one of you may have to be a caregiver if you're the younger partner. Now, that doesn't mean that the younger partner the younger spouse can't that the younger partner can't become ill and need caring for. Doesn't mean that at all. But the odds are, because most of our health issues come later in life. And Sophia, thank you for joining in. Let's see, Sophia says, I agree on that. Some people say age is only a number, and you're right, they do. And in the early years, it is only a number. But it's in the later years again that the issues start to creep in. So you just have to be very careful about that when you're choosing a partner, especially if you're looking for someone, for a life partner, for a marriage, or if you want to get married again. And I say life partner from the standpoint of being in a committed lifelong relationship, but not getting married. Hey, Dorothy, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you. It's been a while. Uh, so those are some of the things, getting back to, we got off track a little bit, which is always cool. I like that. Um, Hey, Lindy, thanks for joining in. Lindy's got a novel here, so let's take a look at that real quick. I was on a date recently with a guy my age who is a personal trainer, among other things, and I went out of my way to dress nice, pay extra attention to makeup, hair, etc. I looked nice and felt confident, but when we met, he didn't say a word about how I looked. He was all about pointing out that he looked good. He actually said, "So I look pretty hot tonight, don't you think? I hope you can keep your hands off me because I don't have sex on the first date." Is needless to say, yeah, that's a guy, Lindy, that's all about himself. And I'm assuming that it was a one and done, but if he was really cute, maybe you go out with him again. But that's see, and that's it. And that, Lindy, you bring up a great observation there, that so many times we meet people, they're good looking, but when it's all about them, it just takes away from the entire evening, from the entire date. Uh, One and done. Awesome. So these are common things that happen, Lindy. I'm glad you point this stuff out, or you brought that up and made that observation, because there are people that it's all about them, and those, in my opinion, those are the relationships, like Lindy said, it's one and done, and you move on, and just because. Uh, that can actually move into a narcissistic relationship where it becomes, everything has to be done their way. Everything is all about them. It's all about being with their friends, and you start getting into a narcissistic relationship, or a toxic relationship. Even doesn't even have to be narcissistic, but they can start separating you from your friends, and making you question your own sanity and your own choices and your own judgment. Um, and Dorothy says, my former husband of 30 years was 15 years older. I met someone from church. He's 10 years younger, and it's going great. Awesome. And, and Dorothy, is, as well as I do, you have to do what's comfortable for you. And, we all have our own comfort zones. We all have our own preferences, our own choices, and that's what makes this whole dating thing kind of unique. I can give you guidance, but you all have your own wants, needs, and desires, and they're different from mine, and mine are going to be different from Dorothy, and Dorothy's are going to be different than Lindy's and Brenda's, and so that's what if if it were kind of a blanket, um, 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 just a blanket commonalities, everybody wanted the same thing, everybody enjoyed the same thing, it'd be kind of boring. So consequently, hey, Phil, thanks for joining in. Got an interesting question. What is the focus or goal of the relationship? That's an interesting question, and I think that's something that's a question that should come up early on in dating. Are you interested in, and the question should be to your date: are you interested in a long-term relationship? Are you looking for something casual? Are you looking to get married again? And that's something that you really need to listen to closely. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that have told me, he didn't want to get married, or she didn't want to get married again. And I just kept pressing the issue, and I just thought if I kept, if I was a good enough guy, that they'd change their mind. Well, that can happen, but I think what you have to keep in mind is that if they tell you up front that they're not interested in getting married, take them at face value. Don't invest a lot of time in a relationship that ultimately you're going to be unhappy with, because your partner said, and they told you right up front, that they're not interested in what you're interested in. If you're looking for somebody to marry, and they're just looking for a casual relationship, why stick around? They may be wonderful. They could, in all other aspects, they could be your soulmate, but they're not going to marry you. At least not initially. That's not something you want to stick around and see, for 5, 6, 8, 10 years, and find out after the fact, that after you've invested all that time, that no, they still don't want to get married. So, and it's not about trying to convince them of that it should be your way. So, great comment question, Phil. I like that. Sophia says different ways to do 20 years ago, and I think if you're 20 years younger, it will take a huge difference to see it. It will make a huge difference to see stuff. I prefer someone, and most 6 years, but not too much older than that. And that's my opinion too. 5, 6, 7 years plus or minus. And then you're going to have common history. You're going to have common experiences. And Dorothy says, I'm about to have total knee replacement on Wednesday. Oh, well, we'll keep you in our prayers, Dorothy. I hope the new guy's going to be there to help you and work with you and provide some TLC for you. So those, and see, that's, Dorothy makes a point that, she's going to have some major surgery, and that is something that it's nice to have somebody there to help you out. Now that will be a good cue to see how much of a caretaker, or caregiver he can be. So keep an eye on that, Dorothy. She says, thank you. Yes, of course. And so those are, and see, that's a perfect example that as we age, things start to happen. Things need to be replaced. Things need to be fixed. And do you have somebody there that's going to be helpful or not? I just had a conversation with a dear friend of mine, that her mother and her stepdad, I guess, was they were just 10 years apart, and her mother ended up having serious health issues, and he wanted nothing to do with her. They were madly in love when they got married, and but once she became ill, he wanted nothing to do with his wife, with my friend's mother, and it was difficult for her to deal with, and it split the family up, and she wants nothing to do with this guy now, and her mother has since passed, but it creates difficulties in the family when the younger partner doesn't want to help, doesn't want to, help take care of his spouse or her spouse. Oh, I think allergies pollens are going crazy up here. Deb says, my video stopped. I can see, hear you though. You might. I'll reboot. Okay, good. I'm glad she rebooted. And Dorothy says he's also a widower of a 30-year marriage. He took care of his wife for 5 years. I took care of my husband for 10 years. Awesome. Well, if he took care of his if he took care of his wife for 5 years, that's a good sign, Dorothy. I think that's admirable. Sorry, I'm getting a little scratchy here. But those are, see, those are the things that we all need to pay attention to, and I'm glad you're paying attention to that, Dorothy, because that is such an important part of a long term relationship, and that's it's all well and good to find all the things on your must-have list and develop an intellectual, a spiritual, and emotional, and a physical connection, and speak the same love languages. But there's got to be that chemistry, that desire to be there for the other person, good through the good times and the bad. It's just a part of the. A part of finding that extraordinary mate. And sometimes you don't discover these things on the first few dates. Sometimes it takes several months, maybe even a couple of years. And unfortunately, there are relationships that it would be nice if you found all the negative stuff up front. But sometimes it just doesn't happen that way. Sometimes life has to happen. There has to be a major life event to see how somebody's going to react. But generally, within the first couple of years, you can pretty much see who somebody is. And if you're really astute, you can see what somebody's like within the first few months. Excuse me. It's just getting tough here. So anyway, and again we've kind of strayed, and I love it. Keep those questions and comments coming. And kind of circling back to Lindy's comment, when you find somebody that's and it may not be a chip on their, we started talking about dating somebody that has a chip on their shoulder or has a problem with their ex, or somewhere, or someone else in their life where they're not accepting responsibility. Lindy brought up a good point of just being self-centered, and and again, this is all part of the learning experience. As you're dating somebody, you have to find out who they are. If you're not finding these things out, they may be hiding something, and so it's all about being in the moment, being present, not getting swept away with emotions and raging hormones and missing the red flags. And that's why it's so important to step back from all of these distractions, to be able to look and say, is he a good man? Is she a good woman? Does she have everything on my list, or does he have everything on my list? Are we developing an intellectual, a spiritual, an emotional connection? The physical connection, that's generally a gimme for most people, because you're not going to be with somebody you're not attracted to. But then, do we speak similar love languages? Do we have common goals? Do we have common values? You've got to be able to have decent conversations. And so all of these things come into play as we date, as we go through this dating ritual, so to speak. Dorothy says, he took me to lunch after I was baptized August 20th. Oh, congratulations. We spent a lot of time together since. Awesome. Congratulations on your baptism. That's a huge step. I'm so happy for you. Um, let's see. Well, that's all. That's about all I have on that right now. That's all I'm coming up with on dating somebody with a chip on their shoulder or a negative attitude. It just in when if you find yourself in a bad mood, or if you find yourself carrying a grudge against somebody, take a step back and start asking yourself why am I feeling this? Where are these feelings coming from? Why is this irritating me so? And start working backward on trying to figure out what the issue is, because you don't want to carry these things forward. You don't want to go on a potentially great date and be carrying a bunch of baggage with you. I talked a couple of weeks ago about the gentleman who was recently widowed. It wasn't even widowed 6 months, and he was already dating, looking for a replacement because he was lonely. He didn't deal with his emotional needs, and so he's going to actually damage some women along the way. He's going to hurt them because they may just fall in love with him, but emotionally he's not going to be able to fully attach to them because he's still attached to his late wife. But because he's lonely, he's looking for a placeholder. And I don't know about any of you here tonight, but I know I don't want to be anybody's placeholder. I don't want to try to live up to a memory, and that's what somebody's going to have to do for that particular gentleman. So those are the things that it's so important to recognize. And as many times, if any of you are recently widowed or recently divorced, make sure you take time to heal from those things, grieve the loss of the relationship. Hey, Linda, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. And she says, absolutely correct. It just takes time. And there's no magic wand that anybody can wave over you to make that happen any more quickly. I was told that within a few days after my divorce that I needed to take at least a year to get emotionally healthy. And I thought, she's just full of it. She's just decided she didn't want to date me. Okay, so next. But she was right. And I've shared this with countless people, and to a person, they've all come back a year or so later and said, Rick, you're absolutely right. You just change over that first year. For those of you that are widowed, you hopefully you recognize that first year was a fog. It's just you were just going through the paces to get through the next day. And it takes about a year to get past that. And then it takes time to start figuring things out. What do I want? What do I need in my life? How have things changed? Nancy says, absolutely. And so, these are all things, and you don't know what you don't know until you go through it. And, I can talk till I'm blue in the face, but a lot of this stuff you actually have to learn the hard way. The same thing with being divorced. If you're recently divorced, oh man, you're hot to trot and ready to get back out there. I thought when I was divorced, or after my divorce was final, that I'd be with my soulmate in 9 months and I'd be living happily ever after. Well, I'm knocking on the door of 12 years now being single. But then it took me a while to get healthy, and it took me a while to figure out exactly what I'm looking for. And I'm sticking to what I want. I'm not going to settle for less than extraordinary in my next relationship, and that's why it takes time. You may find somebody that meets most of the criteria. But as you go, you'll find out that there are some pieces that are missing. And as hard and as cold or as cruel as this may sound, there's no point in sticking around if all the pieces aren't there. It's just critically important if you want an extraordinary life, an extraordinary relationship, that you have to be patient, and patience sucks sometimes. And Geneva says, I'm coming up on 2 years to being out of my 20-year relationship. It took me at least a year to stop hating him and realizing why I hated him. And I really started digging into myself this second year, and it's just been clear. I've had some issues with that relationship, and I had to work on forgiving myself also. Awesome point, Geneva. That is, forgiving yourself is critical to moving forward. We all make mistakes in relationships. We all do things that we wish we wouldn't have done. And sometimes we have to get forgiveness from others, or it would be nice to get forgiveness from others, but we're not always going to get it. But we have to learn to forgive ourselves. We're today we're the product of the decisions we've made in the past. If you've made some bad decisions, learn from them and don't make those decisions again. Let's see. Dorothy says, I bet you learned a lot about yourself in 12 years. Absolutely. And actually, it was more so in the first 3 or 4 years, Dorothy. And the last 6 or 8 have been more about being focused on the things that I want. And Geneva says yes, and Dorothy says bravo. I'm assuming you're replying to Geneva. So anyway, that's those are the things that and we all have to work through those things. There's none of us that are exempt from that. We all have to. And some of us will move a little faster through the healing process and the grieving process, and then others will. And I've worked with and it's primarily women on this case in this case, but that have taken 15, 18, 20 years to get to a point where they're ready to date again. No, did I see the question you asked? No, I didn't. So Cheryl, if pop that question back in there, because I did not see it. So just go ahead and try to shoot that question in there again, and I'll be happy to try to get to it. If you can just copy and paste it back in, see if that works. And so I apologize if I missed something. I'm not trying to ignore anybody. I love the comments and the questions. So we'll just kind of wait here for a minute while Cheryl brings that. Let's see. Dorothy says, the LOL was meant for Rick. Sorry. That's all right. There's comments that come zipping in and out, and yeah, it's all good. It's all good. So, and again, working on yourself is so important. Geneva, I'm proud of you. And it may take another couple of years. Maybe not, maybe another year or so, and it just depends on how quickly you move through all this, and how much baggage that you're dealing with, and how much anger and hatred that you need to unload, because all of that stuff will carry forward if you don't take care of it now. Oh, sorry about that. So anyway, We'll wait here for just to see if Cheryl can get her question back into me. And Cheryl, if it doesn't pop up, I will answer it off the air, offline, and answer you personally. So either way, I'll get to it. I'll scroll through. Let's see. Dorothy says, I'm super proud of myself for waiting for extraordinary. Awesome. I'm proud of you too, because that's the culture of dating that I'm trying to change. Because so many of us, statistics, I just throw out statistics like crazy. Statistics show us that 85% of marriages are just mediocre, or they may even be okay, but they're not great. They're not extraordinary. And the culture, we live in a culture of I've got to be married, or I can't have everything I want. And I so firmly believe that is not true. That is a lie that society tells us. Society tells us we deserve the best clothes, we deserve to eat the best food, we deserve to eat at the best restaurants, we deserve the best homes, we deserve to drive the best cars. We deserve, whatever, the best phones. Everybody's upgrading phones every year, every 2 years. We're continually bombarded with that information. Yet, when it comes to finding your soulmate or an extraordinary relationship, we're told that you're too picky. You'll never find everything that you want. And I've shared this story a couple of times, but I was on the phone with a woman that I was interested in dating, and I told her that I had 36 things on my must-have list, and she said, "You'll never find anybody like that. You'll never find anybody that meets all those characteristics or all those traits." And she says, "What's on your list?" And so I started reading through my list. And by the time I got to the end of the list, there was dead silence. And I knew what was coming. I said, which one do you think you missed? There was a long pause, and she said, "None of them. I met every one of those things on your list." She said, "I'm going to have to rethink having a list of must-haves." And so the point of that story is that it doesn't make any difference what's on your must-have list as long as you stick to it. And for those of you that may be new, your must-have list is a list of non-negotiable characteristics that you want in your next relationship, and be crystal clear that these are non-negotiable. If you have a list of 20 items, let's say, and he or she meets 19, the first word out of your mouth should be "next," because if you're settling for or if you're accepting a relationship that doesn't have everything on your must-have list, you're settling. And somewhere down the road, maybe 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, you're going to say, I wish I would have waited. I wish I would have. Not settled for somebody with less than everything I wanted. And it may still be a good relationship, but it's not great. It's not extraordinary. And that's the culture that I want to change. That's the attitude that I want to change in our society. Is everybody deserves extraordinary. Everybody deserves to be with their soulmate. It's not always fun and pretty to get there, but it's going to be so worth the wait. And I'm working on a couple of different resources of people to bring on in the next couple of weeks to try to share what a soulmate relationship is like. Some of you have never experienced a soulmate relationship. A couple of you have, and when all those pieces come together, it's almost magic. It's just so hard to to comprehend. But when you do find that person, you're going to understand why no other relationship worked out. And so it is so well worth the wait. It's frustrating, and we all want to give up from time to time. I understand that, because I get there too. It's like, oh crap, this just isn't worth it. So anyway, I hope that's helpful for you guys. And Cheryl, I still haven't seen your question pop up, so I'll look for it in the. And thank you, Lindy. Lindy says, hang on. Just sent it. Cheryl says, just sent it in again. Lindy says, you are spot on. And yeah, Lindy, you and I've talked. You were in a soulmate relationship, and there's no sense in settling. And you understand how high the bar has to be, and that's awesome. And so and I'm just kind of looking at the comments here. Cheryl, I still haven't seen it come through. So I will look for it offline and try to answer it specifically for you. So with that, let's wrap up today. I hope this was helpful for you all. I hope you all have a great and blessed week, and let's stay focused on your must-haves and your deal breakers, and finding that extraordinary relationship. I'll see you all next week at the same time, same bat cave, and same bat channel. Have a great week. I love you guys. Thanks for tuning in tonight.